Welcome to this virtual staff room Google Workspace update session. Thanks very much for coming along. The plan today is that Jamie is just going to set the context of the work that we do and what we do globally now. I'm going to do a demonstration of some of the tools that the end user will see if they do choose to go to an enterprise license. My colleague James will give us some updates on the additional security features that you get, and then we'll finish with Chris, who will give us some idea on the pricing and the special extended trial. So over to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Paul, and hello and welcome to everybody. It's great to be here and just to be part of this session today, which is being recorded and will be shared out widely as well afterwards with lots of our key stakeholders and friends globally. I think one of the key values behind sessions like this really is just to point out some of the key updates and the key developments taking place in the world of Google Workspace, because there's a lot of different versions of Google that are available for you to use, and I think one of the ways that we can add value and help you today is to point out just some of the key important bits of all of the great development work that Google is doing with their productivity suite known as Google Workspace. Because some of those updates and some of the things that we'll be sharing with you today are really quite fundamental in terms of the impact they can have in the world of teaching and learning and security as well. So my colleague James will talk a little bit about security later, and Paul is going to cover off some of the key features, if you like, in terms of the latest features and functionality of Google Workspace. And Chris will also on the call. Chris, my colleague, is always able to help anybody with any sort of information on the pricing and licensing models available to you as well. So you've got a lot of expertise on the call that can help out, and you can reach out to at any point that you like, and we'll put our contact information and other details into the chat thread during the session as well. From a C-Learning point of view, it's my real privilege to be the executive chairman of C-Learning. The company has grown in the last few years to a position today where we're supporting people in around about 25 to 30 countries, I think, in total. And so we work with educators all over the world in schools, colleges, and universities, helping them to use Google's most powerful technologies in an impactful way. I could talk for hours about that because I get very excited about it, particularly from a sustainability angle, actually, because Google was the first major technology company to be carbon neutral way back in 2007, perhaps long before the climate crisis was quite so high on everybody's agenda as it is today. And as a result of their pioneering work, they're now about 10 years ahead of pretty much every other major international company that I look at. And they will be net zero by 2030. And they're also the world's largest producer and consumer of renewable energy, as well as many other things that I could share with you today, but I won't because it'll take us a little bit off topic. But it's just a few examples of how Google is leading the way with some of the great solutions that they have. I'll stop talking now because I'll hand over to what's perhaps more important, which is Paul, to provide an update on some of the key features that we'd like to draw your attention to with Google Workspace, and then we'll have a bit of chat about security before wrapping it up with Chris at the end as well, just to provide some detail on the license options available to you. Paul, I'll hand over to you for now, if that's okay.
Great. Thanks very much, Jamie, for that. I'm just going to set my screen up to share so you can see what's going on. And I'm going to start just by changing my layout a little bit so that you can see everyone's faces rather than just one, which is good, but you should all hopefully be able to see me. I'm going to start the demonstration inside the Google Meet. So you are going to have these disappearing images of yourself into the distance, I'm afraid, but there are lots of additional tools inside Google Meet that you get if you go for one of either the teaching and learning or the Education Plus license. So I want to talk about those first. And if you look at my screen in the bottom right-hand corner, you will see I've got 5 buttons. You probably have 4 when you're in a meet normally, unless you're the host. The first one is the shield, which gives me all the host controls. Many of these are part of the free service, but because I'm just making you aware of it, that you've got those should you need them. You can control whether people can share their screens, whether they have to ask permission to come in, and so on and so forth. I want to concentrate on the second set, which is a little triangle, square, circle button there. Second one in. And these are the tools that you get that you don't normally get in a fundamentals version of Google Workspace. I want to talk about recordings first. This is a recording now, of course. It was just a few clicks, pressed record, and the thing's sets up and going. And straight after this event, within usually within seconds. If the servers are very busy, maybe 30 seconds, but no more than that usually. I'll get an email from Google saying, here's your recording ready for you to do what you want to do. It's really great. From a teaching and learning point of view, if you are now working towards an online offering for your learners, and many of our customers are talking to us about precisely that thing, they want to maintain that online offering because it suits a lot of their learners. It's a much more convenient way to consume the courses that they offer. You've got to remember that you don't have to record the whole session. So if you've got a 1 hour lesson, for example, the chance of a student scrolling through that 1 hour lesson to find your 5 minutes at the beginning and your 5 minutes in the middle and your 5 minutes at the end, which are the core bits of delivery that the teacher does, is pretty unlikely. However, if you did just record the first bit, and then when they were doing a task, you stopped recording, then you brought them back together and start the recording again, etc., etc. What you get is you get short, sharp moments, and you can have many recordings, shorter recordings within a single hour. So you might have the first 5 minutes, 5 minutes in the middle, and 5 minutes at the end. They're much easier to organize and to share out. Students are much more likely to watch them and understand what they need to do. So don't think you have to do a whole block. Plan which bits are the key learning points where you do need to record, because you can share them more efficiently and they will get accessed more frequently. So that's the recording process. If you're not aware of it, the recording option is in the 3 dots at the bottom in the middle of the screen down there. It currently says stop recording for me, but actually you will say record, and when you first go there, of course. That's the first thing. Second thing is a Q&A. And whilst I'm explaining what the Q&A does, I'm going to invite the other people on the call to start to post some questions. Do remember it's being recorded, so be polite, please. So this is just a way for people. So here I am as the teacher, and I'm doing a presentation. Learners, it will take 5 minutes. If you have a question, don't interrupt for 5 minutes, but post them in the Q&A, and you'll see the questions will start to appear because my colleagues will post some questions in there in a moment. And then once I've got them in there, you can see there's the first question starting to appear. You can also see that you can upvote questions as each question comes in. So I'm going to upvote Jamie's question there. Well, I don't upvote because I'm the teacher, of course. So other people hopefully will go in there and upvote that question. If Jamie's question was inappropriate, I could bin it straight away, look. So I don't need inappropriate questions to be there in the thing. If I've answered it, I can tick to say I've answered it. If I think I want to hide it for the moment because it will be a better question later in my lesson, I can do that as well. So I can hide and unhide very quickly, and the other people at the other end will unhide it. Once you've asked your question, can you vote up some questions for me, please? Anyone that's on the call, so people see the voting. So you see that Jamie's got 1 vote there, Owen's got a vote, etc., etc. So I can then see where the popular questions are. So if I'm doing my presentation, students are posting questions, I can then go to my sort tools at the top here, and I can sort by most popular. So the question most students, actually I think just pressed Chrissy's. Why are you not going to? Chrissy's isn't jumping up to the top for some reason. So it should show the most popular ones, which is Chrissy's at the moment, at the top of the screen. And I've no idea why it's not. So it gives me a guide about what's the question that's driving, the inquisitiveness of my students.
Paul, sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah.
On my Q&A screen, I can filter and sort it in any priority order. So I put mine to most popular in rank order. So Chris's has automatically gone to the top. I wasn't sure if that was automatic or whether you have to configure it yourself as a user.
No, each individual person can do that. But for some reason, mine popular isn't actually jumping up. Let me change it to another one. Let's go to oldest first, and then go back to, that's the oldest. There we go. It just needed a little kick start to get it back up to 30. So mine now doing what yours is doing, Jamie. Thanks for the heads up there. So Chris's has got the most votes, so he's at the top. So as a teacher, you think, well, I will answer those most compelling questions first. Once I've answered it, I can tick to say I've answered it. If there were lots and lots of questions, and I've got quite a number here, don't forget, I can then go to my second sort option, which is the show option here. And I can say, just show me unanswered questions. So now, because I've answered Chris's question, it disappears. I'm just going to come out of there for a moment. Can one of you please ask another question? Just one more question. It can literally just be a question mark. It doesn't actually matter. And I'm going to close this panel down. Hopefully someone's posting up a question. Just nice and quickly just post it in there. And you should see now I've got a pop-up telling me that a new question's arrived. So if I'm presenting as a teacher, I don't need to keep going in to check. If I miss this message, I can also see on here, there's a little dot on that icon, that triangle, circle, square. And if I click to open it, it tells me, again with the dot, where that new submission has gone. I can see exactly the same in the in-call messages here, look. So if I click there, I can see the information there. So I don't need to be constantly opening this side panel. I can just use the dots as a guide. And then once I've gone in there to look what's there, the dot disappears because it knows I've seen them. And so I can continue. Okay. So just to quickly summarize then, I can sort by oldest, newest, or most popular. I can also filter out the questions that I've already answered, or I can see them all. Or if I've got any that are hidden, so if I hide Owens, for example, because I'm going to use it later in my lesson, I can go to hidden to be reminded what that question is. So it just gives you great tools to sort and organize. And it's a really useful way. And it means that the student can ask the question as they think of it, rather than having to remember it for a little bit later. Polls is the next thing. I can come in early and prepare a poll, but you can't come in the day before and prepare it. You have to do it more or less on the day. So I would arrive 5 minutes early and copy and paste questions out of a document just to make life a little bit easier. So I'm just using a question mark to represent the question and A and B to represent my options. I can then choose to save it and then create another one. So I'll do 2 question marks there. So we've got another question, and that could be C and D. These are just representing questions that I might answer. And these could be skills checks. You know, is the students engaged? You know, how are they feeling? You can do them for a whole series of things. I'm going to save that one. So I've got my questions ready. And then when I'm ready to go, just before I launch them, I decide I'm going to let people see the results of other people's responses. And I'm going to launch that. And again, everyone on the call, you should get a notification saying there's a poll there. If you would go in there and just vote for A or B, I'll just wait for the votes to come in before you can see that. And I can see them coming in now. They will also see the results at their end. And you can see as it goes up, they get the results goes on. And then as soon as I'm happy that I've got the results that I need, that everyone's responded, or the number I want to respond, I can end that poll and then literally with a single click go to the next one. So managing those have they understood the concept? How are they feeling? How is it today? What's the weather like? You know, are you happy? Are you sad? Whatever the question's about, that interaction with your learners is quick and instant and easy to sort. So it's a great little tool to be able to do that. So those are the polls. So that's the Q&A. That's the polls. The last one of the tools inside the Meet are the breakout rooms. If you're doing a Meet and it's part of a calendar event, so you've gone to your calendar, you've created an event and you've invited people, you can set up the breakout rooms in advance. In Google Classroom, that's not quite the way it works. You have to create them on the fly. So click on Set Up Classrooms. It makes a decision about how many breakout rooms it thinks I need, and it's decided I want 2. I can then make some decisions about the dynamics of these groups, and it might be that James and Chris are always arguing, so I can move Chris up to the other group and bring Owen down, because I know the dynamics of those groups are much better and there's much more likely to get work done. But I also know that I need to speak to Caroline about her homework, which she hasn't handed in yet. So I can bring Caroline back to the main room, and I would tell Caroline, we're going to have a quick chat, and then I would put her in a room later. So I've got the power to be dynamic with these, to decide, you know, what's the best groupings for each of the groups. I can give them a name. Oops, can't spell. So the students know what they're doing. So you can name them, which is really useful. I can also at the top create a timer. So I can say end it in 30 minutes or in 10 minutes or in 5 minutes or whatever. So you've got the control to be able to manage those breakout rooms. Okay, so I've decided the number of breakout rooms. I can increase that or reduce it. I can move students around to wherever I want. I can keep students in the main room. So I can do like a mini tutorial with one person, should I choose to. I can set a timer and it will automatically end once the timer has expired. Now, I'm going to ask everyone not to join the breakout rooms today, because the next little bit I want to show is I want to show how to close the breakout rooms. So you will get an invitation to join it, but do please stay in the main room. So do not click on the link to take you to the room. So I'm going to open the rooms now, but stay here in the main call. Okay, so you can see that as the teacher here, as the host of the event, I can click join and go into any of the other rooms. Just a couple of things. If you've got large groups in the rooms, if you go into a room with more than 5 people, you arrive automatically muted. So just to be aware of that, that will also happen to you as a teacher if you go into a large group. And if you're recording the main session, it will not copy across to the breakout room. If you're presenting in the main session, it will not copy down across to the breakout room. And currently, and it does say currently, that precise word in the support pages, currently breakout rooms cannot be recorded. And I feel encouraged by that word currently, because that means they're working on it, or at least I hope it does. So hopefully one day it will. So let's say we've finished. I've been in and helped some people. One other thing, if they raise their hand in one of the breakout rooms, I can see that as well. So I know to go directly to that breakout room, either from the main room to a breakout room or from one breakout room to another. So it gives me that control, so I know what's going on. So we finished the task. I'm finished a bit earlier, so I'm going to close the rooms now. And I click the close rooms. I get a little prompt saying everyone will get a pop-up saying the rooms are closing, and I'll get 30 seconds. So I can go close room, and you can see the breakout room timer counting down at the top. If I decide I can't wait, if I go back to my close rooms now, you see that the word now has been added, and go close all rooms now, it forces them to close at that moment. So it's not automatic close when you go close room, but if you want to push it a little bit quicker, then you can do so. So the breakout rooms are really, really powerful things again. So all those kind of group work things that you've done, you know, for years and years in your classroom, you can now do online. It's collaborative. They can go in the group so you can decide on the dynamics of it. You've got a great deal of control. You can move from room to room really quickly. It's a whole lot of really useful additional tools that make the kind of online experience a really useful one. I want to just quickly talk about one last thing, which is the whiteboarding. The whiteboarding is a free tool. It's the Google's Jamboard software. But I just want to talk about a little workflow. If you were going to do that example with the breakout rooms, and we take maths as an example because we've started with maths as an example, one of the things that I've seen happen is that someone will go to a Jamboard, create a Jamboard with the same number of pages as breakout rooms that they plan to have. First page is called Maths Problem 1. Second page is called Maths Problem 2, etc., etc. So they name the Jamboard pages. They even sometimes get an image of the maths problem or the task they need to do and set it as a background so it doesn't get deleted inside the Jamboard, which you can do, which is a really neat idea. So that when you then open the breakout rooms, you give the breakout rooms the same name as the pages of the Jamboard, because you'll give each page a title. And the students, you share the Jamboard, then you make the breakout rooms, and the students have got access. They can go in there, do the working out, work collaboratively, come back. Everyone has sight of everything. You can go into the Jamboard, you can go into the breakout room. So it's a great kind of workflow, if you like, a combination of Jamboard, which is a free tool, but the breakout rooms, which is a paid for additional functionality. Excellent. So those are the main tools inside Google Meet. I want to talk very quickly about Originality Reports, which is a tool that you get inside Google Classroom. What an Originality Reports will do is it will look at the document and it will check for any citations that are incomplete. And we might want to be cynical and call that plagiarism. My feeling is, in my teaching years, is the majority of plagiarisms were usually done accidentally. Someone forgot to reference the site that they got the information from. Not all, of course, not all. And there's always someone that will try their luck. But the majority of the time, they just forget to put a footnote in saying it's from this website or it's from this book. So, and this is why, and I mentioned that because the originality check, the originality reports that Google offer, is available for both the learner and the teacher. Whereas other tools, that's not the case. It tends to just be a check for the tutor or the teacher rather than a check for the student. So before the student submitted a piece of work, they can tick the Originality Report, say, just check I've got all my citations properly done. It will check the entire web and Google Books for any references to any work that matches what's in there. It'll give them a percentage check in terms of accuracy. So if they've just changed a few verbs, then it'll give them quite a high percentage check, but it will tell them that it has or hasn't been cited, and it'll tell them which ones have been cited, so they know what they need to do to complete the work before they click that turn it in inside Google Classroom. Now that for me is a great tool. Big thing that the student can use it as well as the teacher. The other big thing is that it constantly updates, and it's a massive database, the internet, of course, it's huge. It does one other thing. It will check against a corpus of work from within your domain. So if you've been running a course for several years and some very kind older sibling has lent their coursework to their younger brother or sister and they've submitted it, if it's in the system, it will spot that and it will reference that. So you know that they've got it from another person doing the course because they've submitted it into through Google Classroom using the Originality Report. So internal check of internal documents is really important. Checks the entire web. Both learners and students and teachers can both use it as a tool. You get 5 Originality Reports on the fundamentals version. That's the free version of Google Workspace. And you get unlimited number of Originality Reports on the paid for versions. So that's a really significant difference because the students can train themselves to be good at that citation process before they submit the work, which is great. So that's all of the things in Google Meet. That's the Originality Report. I want to talk about 2 other things very quickly. So here is a sample document, one that I created a little bit earlier. In the Education Plus license now, in the File menu, I need to write something first because the document doesn't exist until you've actually typed something in it. There we go. Google's saving it now. So now it's saved. In the File menu, I've actually got an Approvals option. So if this was a policy document for the school and you were responsible for it and you needed the IT governor to look at it, or you needed your line manager to look at it, once the document is complete, File, Approvals, you then make a request for an approval to be made, put the name of the person in, can write them a message, and then you've got a few options. You can set a date by which they need to approve it, so they'll get reminders. You can allow the approver to edit the file, or you can lock it before. Yeah. So even if it's locked, they can still edit it because you've given them the right to approve it. And then they would send the request. You can ignore this, Steve. I'm going to press the send button. So it goes to them. Yeah. That person wasn't even in this document. So it says to me, he's not even in there. So Google, of course, reminds you. So it's already set the sharing to edit. Tells me the file is locked because I can't now make changes until Steve has actually completed that approval process. So it's a great kind of audit trail of the approval process should you need to do that. So that's specifically in Education Plus. The last thing I want to very quickly show you before I hand over to James to look at some of the security features is cloud search. Now, it could just be that I'm of an age where I'm forgetting too many things, and that's perfectly possible. But I think that this is a great tool. Lots of teachers have got lots of topics and lots of subjects and lots of fingers in lots of pies, and it's easy to lose track of things. Of course it is. And you've got excellent search capability in your Google Drive and your calendar and in your mail. What cloud search does is it searches your entire account and surfaces any links to anything. So you can search, for example, by people. So we happen to have 2 Smiths in the organization. So there they both are. So that's really handy. But you can also search by a combination of multiple words. So I'm going to go Chris and I'm going to go Soundtrap because he and I do some work together on Soundtrap. What this now surfaces is any documents, any emails, any Google sites, any groups, any people that relate to those criteria. What it doesn't do is it doesn't break any sharing permissions. So if, for example, Chris had got a Soundtrap document that he hasn't shared with me, then it would not surface anywhere in these results. only those documents like emails that I've been copied into. So in the drive, for example, if he's got documents that are in there that he's not shared with me, I won't see them. It only searches within my sharing permissions within my account. And it's never yet let me down. Each of the tabs across the top has got filters built in. These are called smart chips. And it just allows you to filter out to a specific thing so you don't get all the information that you want. Yeah. You can decide whether it's owned by me or everything. You can set a time range. So you've got less to look at. So it filters and filters and filters until you've got the thing that you need to see. So it allows you to find things. And like I say, if I'm struggling to remember what that thing was and searching in mail and can't find it, I come here. And I tend to now come here first to do searches for things for projects that I might have left for a little while that I need to pick up again. You know, it's just a much quicker and easier way to find the things that I need to find. And that's Google Cloud Search, and that's on the Enterprise Plus license. So just to summarize, lots of tools in the Google Meet to allow for that online learning, which we now know is a perfect valid and fascinating way to learn and really suits lots and lots of people. The approval process inside Google Docs and Google Cloud Search gives you a flavor of some of the additional tools that you get in the Teaching and Learning and the Education Plus account. So I'm now going to stop my sharing, and whilst I'm just introducing him very quickly, James might want to do the same and share his screen, and hand over to James, who's now going to do something on some of the security features that you get in the paid for SKUs that Google now offer. Over to you, James.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, just share my screen. So with the paid editions of Google Workspace, and this is specifically the Workspace Standard and Workspace Plus, then you get enhanced security. You don't get that if you've just got teaching and learning licensing. So if you have the standard, you'll get the security. If you have the teaching and learning, you will have the teaching and learning things that Paul's just demonstrated. If you get the plus, then you get the equivalent of the standard and the teaching and learning together. So when it comes to sort of like a Google admin console in fundamentals, you can actually look at reporting and you can look at things like that, but it's very difficult. It's more of a very manual process to look at sort of like visibility. And even if you get visibility, there isn't really an easy way to triage an issue or a problem, which is where standard and plus come in. So here we see in the security, we've got our overview, which you have in fundamentals, our alert center, or authentication, or access and data control. All of those are in the fundamentals package. But with standard and plus, you also get the security center. So the security center is really powerful. As an admin, you probably don't have an awful lot of time to sit and run manual reports and this, that, and the other. So this will just give you, even if you have it sort of like once a week or once a month, you can come into a dashboard here and it will give you visibility over your entire domain. So if you've got subdomains and things like that, you can change the domain that you're actually using. We've only got this. This is a demo domain. You can select the time zone, but you can also select how many days, whether you want to look at last month, this month, or you can go up to 6 months. So we'll type in 180 days and hit apply. And as you can see, this dashboard will show you things that as an administrator, you might be very interested in. So things like external file sharing. Who is sharing files with who outside of your domain? And in fundamentals, you can't actually see that. In standard and plus, you can see that, but not only can you see that, you can actually triage and take action if, for example, a student has shared a file with someone outside of the domain who shouldn't have been shared that file, or indeed a member of staff. You can actually find that share and as the administrator actually remove the share. You can see things like authentication of messaging, encryption, message delivery. you can look at the spam filters. But more importantly, not just the spam filters, it's broken down into things like phishing emails, into malware emails. On any of these, spoofing emails, suspicious attachments, failed password device attempts, or OAuth grant activity. So this is from a GDPR point of view. How many apps, third-party apps, have you granted permission, or people in your domain have granted permission to access your Google data? So you can see very quickly which apps have been used, and you can, again, triage it very, very quickly. I'll just scroll down further just to show you the other things that you can see. Failed user login attempts, DLP instance, which is your data loss prevention instance. You can look at that. Now, obviously, that only works if you've got DLP actually configured. So if I go up to, just to give you an example here, phishing. So we'll look at the phishing, and fortunately, 16 are in the spam folder, which is good. That doesn't mean to say that a member of staff won't look in their spam folder and actually click on it. Now, phishing and malware obviously are serious security risks. So we'll have a quick look at this, and we can click and look here. And here we see you've got an unpaid bill. Okay, you can see, okay, who are the recipients? So you can see who the recipient of that phishing email was. You can see who the sender was. You can look at the IP address that they came from. But more importantly, you can come in here and launch an investigation into this unpaid bill. So if I click that, it'll open up in a new tab, and it will pre-populate the investigation tool. So you'll notice here in the Security Center that there is the investigation tool, which I'll come to in a second. But by using the dashboard, it pre-populates it, so you don't actually need to populate this yourself. So here I've asked for spam classification. I can very quickly change that to malware or suspicious. And I come down here and I can see you have an unpaid bill. So I'm going to click on that. And I can look at the actual message header as an admin. I can see what the actual message looked like. Okay. I can actually look at the message. Now, when it comes to actually looking at the message, because of transparency, if I click message, it will ask me to justify why I need to look at that message. So I'm going to put in here potential phishing and confirm. That will go into your IT admin audit log on your domain, so that there's complete transparency of why I looked at this message and what actions that I would take. So here, this is clearly a dodgy email, which is probably why it went into spam. From there, I can hit delete message, restore message, mark as spam. But once I've made an adjudication, if it's been sent to more than one person, it will show those on this screen. And here you can say, mark it as phishing, restore the message, send it to the quarantine, delete the message. So here I'm going to say delete the message. And I have to actually verify that I'm actually deleting this message. And that will then be removed from the recipient's inbox. So that's basically, and with all of these tiles on the dashboard, you can view the report and take similar actions. So for example, external file sharing, you can look at external file sharing and remove them, things like that. So that is the dashboard. Very, very useful and very easy to actually triage problems very quickly. The investigation tool, which we just looked at through the dashboard, if you wanted to actually create an investigation yourself, you can. So you can come in here and you can say, okay, I want to look at devices. I want to look at Drive log events. I want to look at Gmail messaging, and then select your criteria, and it will do the same thing. The next most powerful thing, because the Google Admin Console has something like 600 plus settings, and when you set up a domain, all of those settings have to be set for each of your sub-organizational units. So if you've got a staff sub-OU, a pupil sub-OU, a device sub-OU, and governor sub-OU, however many sub-OUs that you have, all of those 600 plus settings have to be set for each of those OUs separately, unless it's at the top level of the domain. Security health check will look across your domain at every single OU, at every single setting, and will give you, it would literally take hours to do this if you were to do it manually, and you won't always pick things up. But here you can see it's looking at across this entire demo domain, and it's saying here, calendar sharing policy disabled for the entire organization. So the entire domain, we're not allowed to share calendars. And you'll see there's a green tick. And if I click on that, it's secure. So Google say that is absolutely secure. Before I go any further, not all of these need to be green, because different organizations work in different ways. So it's entirely up to the administrator of that organization to decide what they lock down and what they don't lock down. So, for example, here, Access Checker for Drive and Docs is enabled for 4 organizational units. I can click on there and it'll tell me which organizational units within this domain it is enabled for. But it will also give me a recommendation, and it's to do with data leaks. So with all of these ones here, like offline documents, for example, it'll give me different recommendations when it comes to data protection. And if you don't know how to actually enable that for the rest of the domain, you can click Learn More and it'll actually tell you how to do it. Very, very useful. Again, with Gmail, you can see here we've got secure, 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 secure. DKIM and DMARC, those are missing. On an educational domain, those should absolutely be configured. This is a demo domain, which is why they're not configured. And you can see the recommendation is these need to be configured to reduce your spoofing, phishing, whaling risks. So DKIM, DMARC is the same thing. It's all to do with phishing and whaling. You've got your MX records for your mail. And then in here, you've got SPF, which again, because it's a demo domain, we haven't configured it. But again, that's all to do with spoofing, phishing, and whaling. And whaling is particularly important because that is basically phishing, where it's targeting senior people in your organization, looking for the big fish, basically. But it will also look at sort of like your settings for your devices. So your device management, your Android settings, your mobile device management, and it will see whether it's enabled or disabled, and it will give you recommendations to prevent data leaks. But very importantly, and is looking at your two-step verification or your authentication for particularly your administrators, anyone who has an admin account on your Google Workspace domain should absolutely 120% have two-step verification turned on. Now you can see on this demo domain, we have a lot of administrators who aren't set up in two-step verification simply because it's a demo domain. If this was an actual school, college, university account, every single administrator should have two-step verification turned on at the base minimum. A lot of colleges and schools will actually put senior leadership team on two-step verification. to prevent whaling and things like that. Other schools and colleges like to have it for all their teaching staff. Clearly, for pupils, probably not necessary. Again, it looks at your site sharing policy. So here we've got the idea that users can share sites outside the domain. That could be useful in a school environment where you want to set up curriculum sites and share them outside. I would certainly recommend that pupils, the pupil OU, or the student OU, they're not allowed to create sites and share them outside the domain. So again, it'll give you a recommendation. And again, it's to prevent data leaks. So that's the security health check. That's a very quick overview. And I will hand over to Chris.
Thank you so much, James, and also Paul for running through the security and teaching and learning tools there. Okay, let me just share my screen and I'll run through the pricing options for you right away. Here we go. Okay. Okay, right. There are three paid subscription options with Google Workspace for Education: Education Standard, Teaching and Learning, and Education Plus. And I'll run through all three of these with you now. Education Standard covers off just the additional security features within Google Workspace for Education. It's an annual subscription. It's based on your enrolled full and part-time students. You get a free upgraded staff license for every 4 student licenses that you buy. It's a 12-month subscription, and that comes in at £2 per student per year. Okay. The second option available to you is the Teaching and Learning. Now, this just concentrates on the teaching and learning tools that Paul very skillfully explained to us earlier. This, again, is available as an annual, or actually a monthly subscription in this case. In terms of the purchasing for Teaching and Learning, it's a little bit more flexible. You can enroll as few or as many of the teachers that you believe will want to use and benefit from the additional teaching and learning tools. The annual subscription for this is £27 per license. There's also a monthly option where you can subscribe at £2.25 on a rolling monthly basis. With the Teaching and Learning upgrade, you can actually add these licenses to Education Standard too. So if you feel that you want the security, but you've only got a limited number of teachers who would benefit from the teaching aspects, this can be a slightly cheaper model than going for Education Plus, which we'll cover off next. Education Plus is the top tier for the Google Workspace for Education subscriptions. It covers off both the security features of Education Standard, as well as the teaching and learning tools that are available in the Teaching and Learning upgrade. This again is based on your school's full and part-time enrollment. With this option, you also get 1 free staff license for every 4 student licenses that you purchase. The annual subscription for this is £3.20 per student per year. And there are actually some benefits to subscribing to Education Plus in a multi-year deal. So if we move on to that screen next, we can see here with Education Plus, if you take out a 2 or 3 year multi-year deal, there's savings of between 5 and 15%. If you have less than 10,000 paid students and you subscribe to a 3-year Education Plus deal, you will save 5% in the 2nd year and 10% in the 3rd year over the normal £3.20 annual subscription. Now, just to give you some context on that, if you've got 2,000 students within your school or college, then you'd be saving close to £1,000, £960 over that 3-year term. So it's certainly worth something to look into. If you've got greater than 10,000 paid student licenses, the discounts increase. 10% in year 2, and 15% in year 3. So again, you know, if you are committing to this and you're considering a multi-year deal, it's definitely worth talking to us about. There are some great savings to be had there. Okay, so we are offering a 90-day trial for Google Workspace Education Plus. This is for 50 users. You're actually able to move these users around within your organization while you undertake the 90-day trial. C-Learning will support you in terms of helping your teachers to get the full benefits from the trial. We'll also jump on a quick security check with you, with your admin team, just to make sure that the additional tools are helping you to look after the security aspects of your domain. And the details to sign up to this 90-day trial are as follows. Contact us on connect@clearning.net, and we'll be happy to get you set up with the trial. It would be great to get you on board with this. We've helped hundreds and hundreds of schools, both in the UK, Ireland, and abroad, to reap the benefits from a paid Google Workspace for Education subscription. Okay, that was a very short one. I always feel like I get lucky in these because I only have to run through the licensing models very quickly. I will send those slides out after this to anybody who has subscribed, who maybe not been able to attend today's meeting. Jamie, if I can just hand it back to you to wrap up, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, happy to. Oh, there's my screen's back on now. You made me smile a bit there, Chris, because you look like you're beaming in from the surface of the sun today. You've obviously got a spotlight on you or something, or it's very sunny in northern England today.
It's always sunny in Lancashire. It's always sunny in Lancashire. Yeah,
absolutely. It's very rainy in Staffordshire today. But look, I'd like to thank my colleagues actually. Firstly, Paul and James and Chris for running through those key points to do with the latest and best features from Google Workspace. Of course, with any of these things that we've touched on today, any one of my colleagues could have spent the whole session just talking about a couple of those features because there's an awful lot to it. But we just wanted to share perhaps some of the most important updates, whether that's the investigation tool with security that James was touching on, which as James was demonstrating, and James was just showing you some of the really high level sort of teaser points that you can do with Workspace, if you like, from a security point of view. And James is an expert in all the security side of things. So if you want any help or advice and guidance about the incredibly powerful facility you have with Google Workspace from security and investigation point of view, then please contact us, and colleagues like James can happily help. It really is quite an amazing tool, actually, from a security point of view, and all things cybersecurity. It's got unrivaled functionality. And Paul was pointing out some of the amazing teaching and learning features in the latest Workspace solutions as well. Personally, from my point of view, I love the polls that Paul was demonstrating, because I know that from a teaching point of view, I would have used that probably more than once in my teaching session, just to make sure that people were on track and engaging and understanding the concepts and the learning that was taking place. I think it's a great way to enable teachers to differentiate live in the session rather than find out after the session that they lost half the class. So I think there's some amazing tools there. So thanks, Paul, for going through those, and thanks to Chris again, who is the leading expert on all things licensing and pricing when it comes to Google, and can sort you out with an unrivaled deal. I'll leave it to Paul to have the literally final word, because I feel that's only appropriate since Paul had the first word at the very beginning. But a thank you from me for being part of this session today. And if you have any help or any requirements whatsoever, anything that we've covered today, please don't hesitate to reach out via our website or via our connect@clearning email address. Paul, do you want to just say a last couple of words?
Yes, thanks very much, Jamie. The thing that has been implicit in everything we said is that the biggest beauty of these tools is that they are accessible anytime, anywhere. Yeah, and that gives your students the scope to have agency to decide when they access the things they need to access. And with these recording tools, for example, you know, if COVID continues to persist, then it gives them a great deal of freedom to manage their learning in a way that suits them. Because we know that, you know, when we talk about learners, the first image is always of a school child, but actually, you know, right across the full stack of secondary education and primary, secondary, FE and HE. You've got all sorts of different ages of people with all sorts of different situations where that anytime, anywhere model is crucial for them to being successful. So whichever route you choose cloud. That's how I would finish. And thank you very much for watching the video. And hopefully we'll speak to you soon and get you set up on one of these amazing new offerings from Google Workspace. Thanks very much for coming, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.